Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be able to join you all here today, albeit virtually. And before I get into talking, hopefully one day we'll all meet in person and you'll find out how much of a talker I really am. I want to say a massive thank you to Siobhan, Laura, everybody that has been involved in bringing together this conference. I haven't been on social media recently, and over the weekend I logged on and I saw all of the tweets about the conference, and it got me really excited to be able to join you and sharing what I already am hearing is an impactful and powerful conference. So thank you so much for having me here. And I think it goes without saying, but I always want to be able to say this when I'm in new spaces or just seeing people's faces, even if it's on the screen. And I hope that you are all doing well and keeping safe in what is an especially tough time. Especially because, you know, it's winter, and I know that winter can sometimes be a hard season for us. So I really do hope that you're all looking after yourselves and being cared for. And I know that, you know, although we're not able to be here in person, being here virtually is great. And I'm really excited to be able to speak with you today. Actually, following on from Kathy and Sophia's points earlier, speaking about teachers becoming learners and or students becoming teachers and teachers becoming students, something around that. I also wanted to say that I think because I'm coming here to speak to you, I don't want you to think that I'm just sort of this person filled of knowledge and that has nothing more to learn. One of the big things that has made me really excited about speaking to you all here today is that I think I'm going to learn so much more from you than you are going to learn from me. And so I really want to make sure that you know that this is a conversation between you and I and everybody here. And it's especially exciting to be able to be in a space where we can have a conversation, and not only a conversation, but conversation that leads to action. And that really, really makes me so happy. That being said, though, I want to use this time to be very real with you about what it truly means to create impact with work being done to develop and improve education for the benefit of those that need it most. And when I talk about students here, I mean students of today, but I also mean what it means to transform the education space so everybody can be a student and everybody can actually find a place of I want to say equality or equity, but I want to say a level playing ground where everyone can be students and be willing to learn and willing to teach. And I think that's really, really important in encapsulating what I mean with what I'm going to talk about. So it works for me to start off by talking about education, and I think it's important that I speak about education because it's something that I've grown up personally being instilled with the importance of education in my life. My granddad is he brought up a family of educators. So all my family back home, whether it was their choice or not, my granddad encouraged them all to become teachers or work in education before they did anything else, because he firmly believes that, you know, whatever you do in education gives you the skills to do whatever you want to do outside of that. And so it's been a massive and firm belief in my family that education is such a core part of our lives, our society, and it really does make us who we are. And we discover ourselves in and through education, and we build our views based on what we're taught, what we experience, and who we're surrounded by, and the circumstances we live through and in. That's why education is a fundamental right for us all. Everyone should have the opportunity to enrich themselves, learn new things, be able to grasp new opportunities, and live a life where they're able to thrive and truly enjoy what they're doing. And if anything, we're seeing this now more than ever. Living through a pandemic has really been a time where we've been forced to really reflect on what we do, why we do it, what we care about, and how we can come together as a community rather than a collection of individuals with self-interest. We have a responsibility towards one another to be authentic, to be proactive, and to care about how we can impact our world and our lives together. And so, to be candid with you, as meaningful a description that was about education, and as meaningful it is to me as I hope it was to you, this hasn't necessarily felt true of the education system that's being run today. In many ways, it's been run like a business, as a means of building workers and not people. The heart of the system has too long been based on profitability, KPIs, employability, and I'm sure many more acronyms that we in the higher education sector are famous for. Students have long been decentered from education and have in many ways been viewed as less than who they are, whether that's through data and surveys or homogenizing acronyms. And I can speak to a homogenizing acronym that I hear used about me and people like me all the time, which is like BAME or whatever other acronym, helps us to easily group students. So now I know that I've spoken a little bit of doom and gloom, but I'm not big on that. I'm really big on being able to think about how we can be positive and how we can action real change for the education sector, for the system we live in, and how we can really look to transform our education sector rather than trying to patchwork fix the problems that we constantly find popping up and that students are having to live through the reality of. Therefore, at the core of what we do and why I hope you're all even here should be a purpose. Now, I've got my own clear view of the purpose of education, as you've just heard, but I want you all to be able to reflect on what is at the front of your mind when you're all in your roles. Is it the survival of your institutions or the current education system? Is it the experiences of staff and students? Is it the fulfillment of learning objectives and KPIs? Or is it really looking at how we are working to ensure we are delivering education that is honest, authentic, and enriching holistically for all? I'm biased, of course, as my passion and my job is to represent students, but I truly do hope that students are essential to you as they are to me. So when we think about impact, it is important that we understand that impact is not just about creating a fix for a current problem, but actually it's about digging deep into the roots of injustice and tackling it once and for all. Take widening participation, for example. This is an area of work that I'm very, very passionate about. If you're not hearing me say it, like talk about it a lot here, you'll find me talking about it a lot somewhere else. But I'm incredibly incredibly passionate about it, for a few reasons. First of all, I myself was a WP student who came from a low income, low participation and racial minority background. That meant for me, like so many students, that the barriers I faced were varied, intersectional, and constant. I was able to access support, but often that support gave me short-term relief, but not the long-term impact that I really needed to give me the stability and confidence I really needed to be able to thrive in education and not just survive. Most importantly, although helpful, they often felt detached from my human experiences. And we've spoken a lot about humanity here already from the previous speakers. And I think humanity is really important here because, when you base experiences on surveys or feedback, it's hard to really understand them in their real life manifestations of the challenges that I myself and lots of other students are facing or have faced in the past. It wasn't until I started working with my student union, as you can tell, I'm also representative of student unions, so you will always catch me championing them. It wasn't until I started working with student unions that I got a real understanding of why I had a sense of fleeting impact, because for the real change I needed to see realized, it meant that we had to go beyond what we see in the here and the now and get a real understanding of the holistic picture of these continued injustices and barriers to creating an education system where we can all truly thrive. So onto some of the more actionable stuff and the hopeful stuff, hopefully, that will get you really thinking about what it means to go from sort of these words into action. And so for you to be able to deliver real impacts, there are a few things you must be prepared to do and reckon with. I'm going to mention the three. Also, if you know me, I always speak in threes. It's a weird thing I do because I probably picked it up in a TED talk somewhere. But I'm going to mention three things that are most important to me. And I hope that these are just things that you can launch from in order to see real change and impact that students of today and the future can benefit from. So number one, listen humbly and openly, especially when the truth is hard to hear, disruptive to your plans, and quite frankly, embarrassing or shameful. Listening to students is the start of any partnership relationship that you want to build. It requires trust, as we heard before, it requires humility, and it requires space. The ability to really enable people to be heard and seen is one of the most empowering and quite frankly human things that you can do. When students often feel voiceless, they tend to feel powerless to the hardships and struggle that they're facing and often normalize them. This is incredibly harmful to their mental health and often has a detrimental impact on their ability to thrive at university and in education at large. In order to see real impact come alive, listening to students in a space where they feel free from scrutiny, repercussion, and denial is essential. Students are very honest people and often see things a lot clearer than we in the sector sometimes do. I think it's incredibly important that when they invite you into their spaces, and I really emphasize their spaces, not spaces that you call them into and expect them to be comfortable in, you have to humble yourselves to listen empathetically and non-defensively. Validate them with your willingness to admit fault, even if it has been unintentional, and your willingness to tackle the issues they face by allowing them to take you on a journey that causes you to really recognize the roots of the problems and enables you to really understand the extent to which the injustices they're facing, whether it be, for example, racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, classism, or anything else, are systemic and embedded in the foundations of the education system we see today. That first step is definitely easier said than done, but it is important that you recognize that any action without crucial and deep listening continues to trap us all in a cycle of patchwork fixing and temporary impact. Number two, step up, but step back. This is a phrase that isn't mine, so please don't put it on Twitter and say Hillary said it first, trademark it or something. But this is a phrase that I actually heard from a professor back at the university I studied at, Bristol, called Professor Olivette Otel. And just generally to hype her up, she's an amazing Black woman, one of the few Black women professors that we have in the UK, and just such an inspiration to people like me that don't necessarily see a lot of Black women and Black people in our education system. And so it's really great to know her and have been able to hear that from her. And I think when she said step up but step back, that really struck a chord with me and resonated with me on what real partnership looks like with students. The fact that you're all still here at this conference listening to me, hopefully, is a testament to the fact that you are all willing to see and enact real change and impact for students. That's why it's important that in doing this, students are your partners and actually your colleagues in creating this change. On the ground for so many years, students have been at the forefront of change. You only need to speak to Kevin from USI or visit the Students' Union to see that students have been successful in bringing change despite not always having a seat at the table. Think about what more they could do if you brought them in as your colleagues and peers and really allow them to spearhead change and lead on transforming education and eradicating injustice. When I speak about stepping up and stepping back, I'm asking you all to step up to resource, support, and partner with students. But doing so, step back from your structures of hierarchy, your need for, the recognition to be sector leading, the power you have, and quite frankly, your reputations, and really allow for there to be equality and equity embedded in all that you do. So that takes me on to number three, sacrifice and adapt. Be prepared to sacrifice and adapt. This might be hard for many of you to hear because I know how passionate you are about the work you do, but I need you to hear this so that you can understand that for true change to happen, sacrifices must be made. When we look at what it means to eradicate injustices and enable learning and education to be a space where everyone is truly empowered and transformed, we must recognize that we have to dismantle our current structures and rebuild an education system that works without the need to constantly find ways of mitigating against the impact of embedded inequalities. That means for many of you, and I hope I say this right because it could sound really dodgy, but bear with me and follow with this. That means for many of you, your jobs in themselves must be self-destructive. And I know that probably might cause a bit of panic me saying that, but follow me, believe me, it's not doom and gloom. For example, if you work in financial support, for example, the change you need to create needs to ensure that education is fully funded and accessible so no student will ever be in hardship again. In doing this, you must work to make your work irrelevant. so that the cycles of hardship, pain, and inequality don't just persist to keep you in a job, patchworking those problems, but instead allows you to adapt, be imaginative, and create a fully liberated and equal education system for all. In this, you'll be ensuring that we are building a sustainable trajectory for change. You can trademark that phrase because I made that myself, but a sustainable trajectory for change that will ensure that current issues aren't reproduced, that injustice really and truly is extinguished, and that education can be all that I said earlier and more. So I'd like to end by saying that in everything I said, I hope that you are seeing that there is hope, that there is a way that we can truly create positive impact that brings forth change that we can truly be proud of, because it is thorough, imaginative, and most importantly, a product of true and authentic partnership with students. I'm so grateful that I've been able to speak honestly and openly with you about this. And I hope, like I said earlier, that I will be able to learn as much from you as I hope you've been able to learn from me today. So thank you so much for your time. And again, thank you for having me here. That's the end of my spiel.
Superb, Hilary. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Well done. And I think you should do that TED talk that you talked about at the beginning. Definitely do one. I tell you, your sustainable trajectory for change is something I'm going to use. So thank you for that. And I thought those 3 points you made: listen humbly and openly, step up, step back, sacrifice and adapt. I thought that's just really inspiring. Thank you so much, Hilary. We will have opportunity to come back, I think, in a moment for questions and comments. I think I go to the video now by Sue Hackett. Is that right, Laura?